Did
Right.
you get any snow this weekend?
Just like a dusting, which is annoying, but nothing that really amounted to anything. Did you?
Yeah, we got a couple inches, but it started to sleet a little bit last night, so that was the more worrisome part. But um, I'm glad that we're on the tail end of it.
That's what we got too. We did get a lot of sleet that kind of had some like slippery accumulation, if you will. All right. If you would like to go and start, you can just go through how you think your lesson went, and then I'll give you the feedback like I normally do. And then if you have any questions, you can let me know.
Sure. So I thought the lesson went really well. And I think that each one after the third one has kind of like progressed a little bit better. Um, but I always feel like I see more of the problems than I see things that I did well. So like the first thing that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit was the fact that I totally didn't even do the poker chips or the song that I normally did. So I just went straight into the objectives and then the debate, which which was good simply for the fact that we utilized all the time for the lesson, but it was more just like realizing like the that I was missing some of the consistency in my previous lessons. So like I really utilized the timer, but then I forgot some of the basics that I normally do in the lesson. So I think like taking from this lesson and kind of combining it with all of them is just practicing on being more consistent with how I utilize the I do, we do, you do in the lesson.
So it's interesting when I do the notes, I kind of give notes holistically. I focus on this lesson, but then I do it holistically in regards to what I've seen. And I did notice, sorry, that you hadn't used the poker chips. And I didn't even mention it because I didn't know if it was intentional or purposeful, and that you just, knew for time purposes that maybe you weren't going to implement that into this particular video.
Right.
But I like the fact that you notice those things when you watch or after at the end, those little things, and you're reflective on them. Um, so I will go through my overall kind of feedback. So in general, I'll do that kind of feedback. You have a very warm, friendly classroom, student centered almost all of the time. Um, the students, you can tell they feel comfortable and confident in your classroom, because even at the end when they were doing that reflective aspect, they're comfortable telling you, no, we would have preferred to do it this way, or no, we like it that way. Even though sometimes it's not in alignment with what's best for the lesson, at least the students themselves are very comfortable telling you like, oh, we would have liked this to do it this way better. Which is a great, and they're respectful when they do that. Um, Throughout the course of the entire time, 12 weeks we've been together, we've been able to plan really great lessons and then implement them. I know there's been a few times that you've talked about your overall pacing and your structure, but I think that the flip side of that is that you always do a really nice job letting the students drive the lesson, in the sense of if they feel like they want to talk about something more, or if it goes longer than you had planned, you're able to kind of pivot and move and really be responsive to that, which is great. I do agree. Sometimes you say that, bringing it back in is important. This lesson, you used a timer, which I think is a great way to do just that, especially in a debate that you can really lose overall, not control, but timeframes are extremely important when doing a debate, to make sure both parties or both sides have equal opportunity to share, but also that you can get through the entire full process of a debate. We already talked about your reward system or the chips that you use, and that this lesson didn't have them. But I do think it's one of the really great things that you do when it fits in your lesson, to kind of showcase the students that you give that immediate feedback. They trade them in that day, which is really great. Let's see. Obviously, you go in fully. I mean, I mentioned your outfit kind of in a joking manner in your feedback, but also it is a positive thing, because if you show that much enthusiasm towards what you're teaching and what the students are learning, they're naturally going to do the same. I noticed that some of the students were wearing outfits. I didn't know if maybe
Yeah.
it was, yeah, they kind of had some stuff on too. Was it connected to what they were talking about just because of the dress code piece?
So originally it was going to be from what I had planned at the very beginning when we were in module 7 and we are kind of going through the curriculum map, my goal was that it was going to be more of a debate strictly on the Bill of Rights. But I noticed that as we were going through the unit, we kept kind of like hitting a lot of road bumps as far as what students were able to grasp. And so then I thought, okay, we'll get like the First Amendment and the Fourth Amendment done and debate that. And then it just ended up being just that main theme of student expression or speech in schools, and whether or not there should be more freedom and flexibility within that. But prior to that, some of the students asked if they could dress up because they thought like it would be just a great celebration of the last video. So it just so happened to coincidentally fall in line with the idea of student expression.
I gotcha. Okay. That's funny that they're invested, I guess I would say, in your filming schedule. All right. So to kind of keep going forward, let's see. Structure we talked about, prepared to check timer. That was all good. We talked about student comfort. So those are the main areas. Obviously, there's a ton of positives that are going on in your lessons. I think that, you know, so the two areas that I mentioned in regards to kind of continuing to move forward with or improve on are the differentiation strategies that we're using. You do differentiate. I always kind of talk about this with my candidates, just the importance of making sure that we're always being mindful of the students that we have in the room, and that differentiation is something that every single person can continue to grow and develop, just because as our student population changes, we have to alter the way we teach. So I always talk about that. Pacing, we've talked about that before, just making sure we're consistently mindful of how do we make sure that we give opportunity for students to be reflective and drive the lesson, but also making sure that we get through all the necessary content at the same time. So finding that balance and continuing to work on that. And then just classroom management, it's a catch-22 because your students are super comfortable in the room. We have had a few instances, that one big one, where student overall conduct and behavior became an issue, but you handled it really well. So just making sure that we're consistently monitoring and reflecting our classroom and the dynamics inside of it to make sure that we can continuously monitor and support students as necessary, and also get the kids out of the room when necessary as well. But again, I won't go through all of your scores. I scored almost every single indicator outstanding, which I'm not going to lie is very rare for me, just because I am an administrator. I believe we live in proficient and hit outstanding once in a while, but I feel like your classroom dynamic is really great. You teach a population very similar to what I work with, and I know the challenges that can be faced by that, especially when they're when sometimes they might not just be as motivated. But I think you found a really good way to get the students interested, to find it, to allow them to participate in various different ways, whether it be digitally, out loud. You gave paper when some students wanted that at times in terms of differentiation. So I think you work really hard to meet your students where they are. I think that you've taken a lot of time and effort into establishing healthy relationships with your students so that they will take risks. That's not easy. So I do believe that you've hit outstanding and that you deserve the outstanding indicators in those areas, just based on what I've seen and heard in the classroom, and what the students are doing and able to kind of, without you, right? Their independent work is really great. So ultimately, I think you did a super stellar job throughout clinical. I think you're in a setting that fits you well. Not saying that a traditional setting wouldn't, but not everybody can teach in that kind of setting where you're working in, with CTE students in a very targeted population. So I think that it's great that you're working there and that you seem to really have a passion for it.
Yeah, and I think that I'm not sure in your school setting, and like you said, you've had experience, well, based on the demographics of where you're teaching now, and it's like 2-3 weeks ago. So I think it was like at the very end of when we had our 4th video meeting, or maybe it's been in between, but we had students take a STAR 360 test for reading, writing, math, and science. and the average of, we have 150 students, between 150 and 160, and the average reading level was fifth grade. And so yeah, I find it really difficult sometimes, and like I generally am optimistic, but I always have sort of like a I don't know, like I remain hopeful and optimistic. But when you see that 17 and 18-year-olds have a fifth grade reading level, I feel like super helpless. Especially because a lot of the, and I don't, and I think this is sort of a generalization I'm making of American education than just my school, but like it's really hard to feel optimistic when you have that, when students have that burden behind them, but then also there's not enough support staff to like we have two people in our academic center, and they run around like chickens with their heads cut off just for 150 students. So I can't imagine where there's a traditional school setting with like 500 or 600 students, and like having a similar um, kind of lack of support amongst, for students. So I just don't know how I just don't know how other people do it. It feels like, as much as I'm proud of the 12 weeks that I've done with this clinical, like it kind of feels like, I don't know, I feel kind of crappy at the end when I have that kind of news, because I wonder like how effective I can be as a teacher.
It's so true. And it's so I work, my high school has about 800 students in it. And I've told you before, it's like a high needs district, and we do benchmark assessments as well. We just did our winter benchmark. And,
Yeah.
we have an upper pocket, but our students are so behind, and we talk about it all the time, and we have no support. I mean, we do, I don't mean it that way, but there's no teachers right now. Nobody wants to teach, nobody wants to go into education. I have, so my support staff is the staff I have to pull from to cover classroom vacancies. And then you ask yourself, well, how do you close the reading gap? How do you close the gap in math when we have to shut down AIS, support staff rooms, and all of these things? And it's very discouraging. We just met as a district leadership team because in my building alone, I am short tons of staff, but I also am seeing a ton of retirements in June. So I said to my superintendent, I don't know what you think I'm going to be able to do, but I can't build a master. Like I can't function. If we don't close some of these gaps, we're going to be making really hard choices, which is extremely large classes and very limited programming, which is sad, that we can't find individuals to take jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. That's not really what you wanted to hear, but like I agree, and we kind of just I don't know how we got here. I've been in education for, I don't even know, like right around 15 years, and when I graduated, the first job I applied for was an elementary classroom position. I was one of 1,400 applicants, one of 1,400. Now, when we push out jobs for elementary teachers, we're lucky to get 2.
Wow. Wow.
I mean, that's what has happened. That's the shift that we've seen. Like you go from one of 1,400 to 2.
And next year our school, well, this whole state of Vermont is going proficiency based. So instead of getting a grade point average, they'll just get like something from between a 1 and a 4. And so I'm not sure. That's another question I have is like, how does that because when I've been doing the Vermont state standards for all of my lessons, and they have like they call it the C3 standards for social studies in Vermont, and there's elementary school based proficiency, then there's 8th grade, 10th grade, 12th grade, and so for all of the proficiencies, I did it for 12th grade because that's the age range that I teach. But I think if I was being really honest with myself, and if I was teaching the same curriculum to all of my students, I don't know if I could even get half of my student body to get the 10th grade proficiencies if we were to do like a whole year. And so that's like another struggle is kind of like the ever changing, like I mean, I guess it's good because we're trying new things, but it seems like we're throwing spaghetti at the wall trying to find something that does work, but then we're also losing out on like generational classes of students who aren't benefiting because everything is so chaotic and always changing.
I know, and I think that everybody's trying to figure out how do we recover and what do we do with like post-COVID, because even in New York State, like last year, we've not changed anything except they've dropped our proficiency scores. So to graduate high school, you need 5 exams. You had to have a 65, now you can have a 50. And it's like, if we're gonna give kids a 50, why are they taking it? Let's just understand that right now assessments are not practical, but they're just unwilling to do that. And I agree. I think we're constantly right now just almost like treading water, and then at the same time they have like a hose in the pool, right? So the level keeps rising, and it's just not great. And proficiency grading is great if you're given the opportunity to just slow roll it, like train, push it out. But when you just immediately shift, it's a whole different way of grading, teaching, everything. So it's a heavy lift to go that proficiency based scoring, and
Yeah.
essentially standards based grading is really challenging. So hopefully they'll provide you guys with enough resources so that you can see the differences, because that's tricky. That's not an easy shift to make, because ultimately what it means is you're constantly having to go back to different standards. So we've not done that. We have it K6 in the state of New York, but 712 is still numeric based grade. So hopefully they'll give you guys the training that you need to make that be effective.
And then one question I have for you is so for New York with tech centers, do they ask students to reach the same proficiencies as if they were in a traditional school setting? Because I was just wondering, and I know that like I guess like in my mind, it would be beneficial to students that are more hands-on oriented, that don't see college or university in their future, or at least they don't see the traditional college being in their future. Because I know that like a lot of diesel students, there's a school in Ohio that our school like generally there's a lot of students from that program that go to that college for like a 2 4 year diesel degree, but it just doesn't seem I guess fair in the sense to some students because in other programs I have I probably, if I chose some of my programs to do the clinical, I don't think I would have even been able to get through like 30 minutes of what I had planned to teach, just because there are, more behavioral challenges. There are more students on plans, and but yet they're asked to reach the same proficiencies as if they were a 12th grade student at their sending school. So I was just wondering, like, if maybe from a tech center perspective, if maybe asking students to do those same standards is not as beneficial compared to like a regular 9 people.
So in the state of New York, the way it works is our students begin going to tech centers in 11th grade. So they are selected and have to apply. That doesn't mean that they're your top performing students, because it is for those students who are looking for an alternative path to graduate with a certificate. But what it does mean is we don't send behavior students. So
Yeah.
and they are required to meet the same graduation. So all students in the state of New York need 22 credits and 5 Regents exams. It's the same for those students that are attending a tech center, unless they're a student with a specific disability, and then they can get a local diploma, which waives some of those Regents requirements. But in order to be eligible to go in 11th grade, so they visit in 10th grade and they fill out an application. We generally send almost everyone unless we have concerns for their behavior, because our tech centers will not take any students with any behavior concerns, and they have to be on track credit wise for graduation. Otherwise they can't fit it. So they stay with us half day and they go half day. So they take 3 classes on campus and then they bus out to the tech center.
Interesting. Okay. I like that fact that they can't get accepted if they have outstanding behavioral issues.
Yeah, and
Um,
it really, especially with a lot of the programming being so hands-on, it's dangerous. So They have to, and if they are out there, they have like a two, like, well, it's a 3-strike policy, but you don't get the 3rd strike. So after your 2nd strike, you are removed. And that is if you break any conduct. So for example, a big thing that we're seeing right now is like the dab pens, like the weed pens, to be honest. And if they're caught there on our campus, obviously it's different, but if they're at the tech center and they do anything like that, it's immediate termination just because of the health and safety risk.
Right. Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to make that suggestion to my director tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, there is not, and we tell the students in 9th grade when they start to indicate that they want to go, that there's an application process and that their behavior and academic record will be evaluated. And it's generally just behavior concerns that keep students from going, but it's helpful, and it's like a carrot that I can dangle as the sending school administrator to say, if you want to go, you've indicated you want to, you need to get your behavior under control.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else I can help you with?
More than anything, I just want to say thank you for the last 12 weeks. And I think I'm a better teacher now than I was 12 weeks ago. But I have to say, like, the just doing the Teach Now program, like, I feel after 9 months, I feel much more confident going into a classroom than I did, especially when it comes to the curriculum planning.
That's awesome.
Really daunting, and that I have to say, it was a really tough module, because we had to do the curriculum, the unit, and the lesson plan, and so those felt like really long weeks. Right?
Yeah, those are heavy lifts. I teach module 5 and 6. I feel like I always say it's like the sucker punch before clinical, because they're heavy, but it's such important stuff. Like you said, like, it's a lot to get through, but the learning curve that you can walk away with is so monumental that it's worth it. But you're not wrong. You come out of module 4, which is great. You build your management plan, then you get into 5 and 6 and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, if you need anything, I'm not encouraging you to leave your position or anything like that, but if you ever need a letter of recommendation or anything, or if you find yourself in the state of New York and need a job, get in touch with me. I think that your school is very fortunate to have you. You can tell that you care a lot about your kids. But if you ever need anything from me, even if it's years down the road, don't hesitate to reach out. I keep record of everything so that I could write a letter if you need one.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
And I might hit you up sooner than.
Okay. That's no problem at all. But if you need anything, let me know and I will complete your paperwork. I do have to do your mentor, your verification report. As soon as you do that on your end, shoot me an email and then I'll have access to it on my end and we'll get you all squared away.
So I clicked, yes, the other day I clicked the confirm button.
Let me see what I have. We'll do it right now.
Okay.
Let me see if I have it.
Yeah, I was a little unsure about that process right there.
Let's see.